Awesome. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Today, another special guest, Mr. Will Marshall. He is an online coach specializing in helping former athletes get back to peak fitness. Will, thanks so much for taking the time, man.
John, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
I'm looking forward to it. It's always fun digging with other. I guess I can consider myself an athlete, sort of. Does beer league hockey count?
I'd say so.
At one point in my life, I would consider myself an athlete. Now I sit on my ass all day long, but I'm really excited to dig in into your story, because I don't think I know, kind of your upbringing or your athletic background, things like that. So I'd love for you to just go whatever tangent you need to go on, my man, and just let us know who Will Marshall is and what you're about.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thanks again for having me. I mean, I like I was, we were talking, I've done a few podcasts here and there, and I love just kind of jumping at the opportunity to do them because, who doesn't love talking about themselves, first of all? And then, it's obviously gives, storytelling and that kind of stuff. That's kind of like what we humans do. And it's always felt like it's been easy, I guess. But I mean, to kind of get into it. So, I mean, my background is soccer. I played soccer my entire life. And so in terms of the fitness stuff, like that came much later. I started playing soccer when I was about 4 years old, and then things got kind of serious for me around 10. So that was when I became like a goalkeeper. Like that was the first time I ever stepped in the net. And it's a ridiculous position. I don't know why. I don't think I'd ever recommend it to anybody, because it's just like you're setting yourself up for a life, or however long you decide to do it, of just like tension. And I mean, there's just such high highs and low lows, and you could have it so much easier, and I just don't know why anyone wouldn't want to do that. But so I started playing in the net when I was 10, and then I knew I wanted to play in college when I was 16. So I was a sophomore in high school, which was pretty late. And so eventually from there I went to the University of Pittsburgh. So I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I've lived here my entire life except for about maybe 15 months or so. And so went to Pitt, graduated from Pitt. Pitt's a Division I school. They're in the Atlantic Coast Conference, which in the United States is the best conference for college soccer. And I was a part of like a weird kind of a thing there, because starting out, like Pitt was not very good. Like we were like, we were ranked like 160 out of 205 teams. And the only reason we were ranked that high is because our competition was so good. We had to go up against the best teams in the country. And we didn't win a lot of games, and it was tough, man, because it's just like demoralizing. Like the expectation was to lose, and like no one would ever say it out loud, but that's just kind of what it was. And so then when I was going into my sophomore spring semester, we got a new coach, and the program completely flipped upside down. My life flipped upside down, because I went from like it just the standards were so much higher, and then like the soccer was so much higher level, and it was something that I had to really adjust to. And so, but that whole thing kind of really put me in an interesting place, because it really kind of got me to where I am now. And so, I mean, Pitt now is like a top 10 team in the country every single year.
Wow.
And like in Pittsburgh, that's something that like soccer didn't have a presence for a really, really long time. Like it was like, we have three major sports. We got the Steelers, Pirates, and the Penguins. We don't have any major league soccer teams. We do have a professional soccer team, so I'm going to get to that in a second. But so while at Pitt, we're in the weight room 3 to 4 times a week. Especially as a keeper, I was in there more so than the field players, and that was where I really found like fitness. I just got hooked, man. Like it was like freshman year, I didn't really like it. Like I started lifting like in my garage as a senior in high school, because I actually got injured. I tore my quad, and I missed the entire fall season of my senior year. And then I realized that I kind of was getting out of shape. So I started lifting, and then I got in the weight room as a freshman, and I was like, this kind of sucks, because I didn't know what I was doing. Like I didn't know how to do a power clean, and like it was all foreign stuff to me. And then once I kind of started to figure everything out, like I was like, this is so fun, because it's like I was in kind of what I call the discovery phase, where it's like, you're new to the weight room and you don't really know how strong you are. So every single week you're like PRing something.
Yeah.
And I was in that for like a year, because in the beginning, your form isn't great, and then you learn how to fix those things, and then that helps with hitting more weight and stuff like that. And so I found like CrossFit at the time, and I was really into CrossFit, and I kind of treated like fitness as like my second sport, and then I started learning more about nutrition. And then, I myself took on, I did the paleo diet when I was going into my junior year because this new coach of ours, my body fat percentage was pretty high for like a Division I athlete. Like it was like 14. And he was like, you should probably try and get that under 10. And this is a guy I didn't want to disappoint, and I was like,
Sure.
I'm going to make that happen. So I went on the paleo diet and my whole family did it. And I don't know, I'm not big on any kind of diet at all. Like I think at the time it worked for me. I don't think it would work for me now, but I went from like 14% to 8.6 in a matter of like 8 weeks. I mean, I got shredded, my entire body type changed. And that was like a big, big catalyst for me because I was like, oh, I can really do stuff like that, and like I felt great. I was so much stronger. And, it kind of like put me in motion for the next 2 seasons. And so all this time, my major was political science, right? Like I wasn't like thinking about doing anything fitness related. I ended up graduating from Pitt with a degree in political science and a minor in sociology, which maybe that kind of ties in a little bit. But so I transferred after for my 5th year. I went to a smaller school, Division II school in the east side of Pennsylvania called Westchester University, just to play my 5th year. I was going to get certified to be a social studies teacher. And that season led to a run to the national championship, which was hosted in Pittsburgh.
Wow.
So it was crazy because I knew Westchester was a national tournament team, but I didn't know that we were going to go to the national championship, and so I knew that the Final Four would be here in Pittsburgh. I mean, I'll be real. I never thought we'd make it there because, no one expects to do that. I mean, there's some teams that have that expectation every year, but I just didn't think it would, no one expects it to happen. So we go on this run and it's like, we win the Elite Eight. And I'm like, holy shit, I'm about to go play in front of all my friends and family for a national championship, And so what makes it even more weird is where the game was is Highmark Stadium. And it's on the South Shore of Pittsburgh on the other side of the Monongahela River. And that's where the Pittsburgh Riverhounds play. There are our professional team. They're in the USL Championship, which is the second tier of professional soccer in the United States. And I am now an assistant coach for the Pittsburgh Riverhounds.
Wow.
I coached in their academy and I trained in their academy from the age 16 on. And so I've been at that stadium for all these different reasons. And then I was being brought back again to play in a national championship for a completely different reason. And so, that year ended. I didn't know what I was going to do career-wise. I didn't have a clue. And so in December of, I think it was 2019, I got a call about being a goalkeeper coach for Virginia Tech University in Blacksburg, Virginia. And at the time I was like, I'm not really doing anything else. I was doing some coaching. I was kind of maybe thinking about personal training, but so I went to Virginia and then I moved there in January of 2020. And so we know what happens in March, right? And so then I got sent home in March. And then that was when Marshall Fitness became a real thing. And so I had all this time, I was sitting in my room and I read The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, which was a big catalyst. And I just started thinking about the fact that I didn't want a normal job. I've never had a normal job in my life. I've been a coach for all this time, whether it's soccer, personal training or whatever. And so I'm just thinking about all these different ideas. And it started out with, programs and shirts, which is like this shirt right here. And then it was like September. I remember I was driving back from Philadelphia and I was listening to Barbell Shrugged. Barbell Shrugged, the podcast?
Yep.
And John Goodman was on Barbell Shrugged and he's talking about online coaching and how these gym owners are taking their businesses online. And I'm like, that's what I got to look into. And so not even a week later, I started OTA 1. Nice. And then since then, now I'm in my second full year. I've completed OTA 2, which I know now is the mentorship. And it's been, this kind of balance of being a professional coach and doing all the things that entails, traveling. I mean, I'm going to Indianapolis this weekend. I mean, we just came back from a double back-to-back weekends went to New Mexico and then went to Hartford, Connecticut. And so it's busy, but in the sense of like, there's just a lot going on. I can still handle my business, And so usually the way that my schedule goes in the morning, like we have training. So I was, at training this morning, come home, I do a lot of stuff for my business. Now I'm going back to the field at 5:30 or so to coach our academy kids. So it's our youth system. So yeah, it's kind
That's
of a
awesome.
it's been a long run, and you know, it's just kind of getting started too. So
Yeah. So
it's
you
exciting.
never became a social studies teacher?
No, I never even got certified because I had to student teach, and I never did the student teaching. And I haven't like what I realized was I was like, I'm 23. I just left high school, and you're telling me I got to go back.
Yeah.
And so that was the big thing. It was like, because I mean, even though you're a teacher, you're still back on like the high school like routine. You know, you're still there 7 to 4 or whatever, and then it's like it's the same thing. And then the scary thing I noticed too with teaching is like, you know, I'm so close with a lot of the teachers that I had growing up, and you know, I see them, and I just feel like it's a job to where you can really let time get away from you,
Hmm.
because the years go by so fast, and then the next thing you know, you're running into kids that you taught 10 years ago. And like I do that now. I mean, like I've been out of high school for 8 years, and like I go back and see my teachers, and I'm like, it's been 8 years since, you know, and like, but they're still in the same place. And like
Yeah.
maybe not in terms of life, but I mean, it's just like, you know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
so easy to become aware of that. And I don't know if I was
That
ready
wasn't
for
for
that
you.
yet.
That's
No.
fair. Well, but not to mention dealing with high schoolers as a 23-year-old couldn't be couldn't be a big draw for you either.
Sure. Yeah. I always thought maybe like I could relate to them better. And I mean, I still like, I deal with high school kids now, but it's different because I mean, they want to be playing soccer
Yeah.
and stuff, but still, I mean, it is something that I don't know. It's such a cliche, but you know, I find kids weird now, and I'm sure like adults find me weird too when I was a kid. So it's just like, it's just that constant thing, you know.
The generational
The,
gap.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's never gonna not happen, you know. But I don't know. I think maybe one day, uh, I'll decide to maybe I'll go back and like when I'm like old, I'll go be a
Yeah,
teacher,
you got
or
lots of time.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll be the cool sub or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's awesome, man. I mean, the one thing that struck me very early on is you decided to become a goalie.
Mhm.
In hockey, they're the weirdest people in the dressing room.
Yeah,
Is that the same for soccer?
it's the same.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it is, but it's not. I think that there's some that are like very, I don't know. I don't know. They're willing to put themselves in front of the ball. You know, potentially getting kicked in the face or whatever. I, I would say the teammates that I've had that have been keepers haven't, like, it's definitely still a thing. There's a like a preconceived notion with a lot of goalkeepers. But the thing is too is like we're also like we have what's called the GK union. So, you know, all goalkeepers are kind of on the same team, because even though that you have a team, you're still one of maybe 3 people that really understands, you know, what you have to deal with day to day. And it's hard, man, because like even your own teammates sometimes like don't like you. Like like your goal scorers, they don't like
Yeah.
goalkeepers, and they don't
No.
even like their own goalkeepers. And like you're just never in a position to where you can kind of have a perfect day. You know,
No.
goal scorers can score 2 goals and then they're like, that's a perfect day. But as a keeper, you can keep a shutout. But even if you made one mistake that almost led to a goal, it's still not a perfect day. And
Fair.
so it's tough, man. Like I said, I'm only 5'7" too, which is that's a kind of a big thing. Is like I'm very undersized for a goalkeeper in soccer. Like they're usually like 6'2", 6'3" on average. Um, and the thing was with me is like I started at an early age. I was under the impression that I was going to be taller because there's a lot of height on my mom's side,
Mm,
and then I didn't get any of that. And so I was already 16, I already doubled down on being a keeper. And I was like, well, it hasn't really stopped me. So I guess I'll just keep going. But my life definitely would have been easier if I would have been a little bit taller. But, you know, it is what it is at this point. So that's why
yeah,
I'm a coach now. So,
that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, goalies are a different breed. One thing I do remember, the higher up level I played in hockey, the better in shape the goalies were. Like they were always like the tip top shape of the entire team. It's a lot of pressure. You know, you said it in soccer. It's similar where it's in hockey. There's 2 goalies, and you have maybe a goalie coach, and that's it. Like the defenseman might help you out. The forwards really don't care what's going on back there. Just keep the puck out of the net, and it's kind of just you're in your own zone. And for soccer, I'm sure it's even more kind of in your own cone of silence almost for most of the game because your field is huge and you're back there in that big net by yourself.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot that's come out, like, and I mean, with all sports anymore, but especially goalkeepers and like the connection between like mental health and that kind of thing. I mean, there was a keeper for the German national team like a few years ago that, I mean, he unfortunately like he like committed suicide because of just like it just caught up to him, like the
Hmm.
pressure and being playing at the highest level and stuff, and like it's just it's called a lonely position because again, there's only a couple people that understand, and so that's why everyone kind of leans on each other, like whether you're playing for the same team or not, and so it's I don't know, like I said, the big moments are the only thing that make it worth it. um you know like saving a penalty, like that makes it worth it because like I said, it's such a high, but then when you do make a mistake and when you cost your team a game, like that is such a low. And I mean, my last year of college, like, going to the final four and national championship. And because I mean, my run with it too is like at Pitt, I didn't play. Like I was like a number three. I played
Okay.
12 minutes in a 7-0 win against West Virginia. But I was very much a team guy. I was a locker room guy, and I love the weight room. So I had other things that I kind of that kept me going.
Hmm.
But I also just love to train. And I'm seeing that now more, having been a coach for a bit, is like kids a lot of the time don't live for training, they live for the games. And that is not a sustainable path, because that doesn't make up a lot of your season. You're out there on the field every single day, and that's got to be what you like.
Yep.
And I just like diving around, man. I like making saves, and that stuff was fun. And it was like, yeah, I want to play, but what's best for the team is best for the team.
Hmm.
And so in my fifth year, when I finally got the chance to be the guy, there was just so much pressure that I put on myself, but then also like all my friends and family who have known me my entire life, that knew I sat the bench at Pitt, that knew I was waiting on the moment. And I just like, I had to make sure that it ended a way that I can be happy with.
Hmm.
And the only thing that could have made it better would be winning the national championship, because we lost with 11 minutes to go. We gave up two distinct things to think about, because I could have let it really eat at me. But I choose not to, because when it comes down to it, it's just another game. It comes down to being like bonus soccer. That was one of the weirdest things, is that I really thought those games would feel just so much more like, would have so much substance behind them.
Hmm.
But it's really just another 90-minute game. It's the same thing. Um, it's just like by that point, you've gotten there, and yeah, you want to win the whole thing, but it's someone has to lose. And I never thought about that either. Like I always thought if I ended up in a national championship, I'd win. You
Yeah.
don't think about the fact that like there's however many, a few dozen national championships every year. I mean, just in college, and like someone loses,
Yep.
and you only get so many tries at that. Like college, you have 4, maybe 5 years of eligibility. In the pros, you can kind of prolong your career as long as you're willing to work at it. But with college, like you're done. That's it.
Yeah.
And so the fact that it even happened 1 year is crazy. Um, and then it's like, I don't know. I mean, I think it just kept me hungry, like losing it at the very last kind of stretch, because, and I remember my brother texted me too. Like I was literally getting on the bus to leave the stadium, and he was like, "So what's next?" He's like, he
Wow.
said CrossFit regionals, college coach, pro soccer. And I was like, I don't know. And, that, I think a lot of it led me to where I am now, and I'm really enjoying where I am now. So, I mean,
Mhm.
I'm okay with the way things went.
Yeah. And I feel like, I mean, as you grow up, you can mature and be like, okay, it was like in the moment, I'm sure it was like the potentially the worst thing that could happen in a
Mhm.
bid. I remember that's how I went out in it wasn't college hockey, it was minor league hockey here. When you're up to 20 years old, you can play. And we got the championships, last game, my last game, it was either win or lose, and we lost, and that was it. And I remember my mom's funny is she was pumped because she didn't have to drive me to hockey anymore. She in the nicest way, but it was like one of those like I wish we would have won it kind of thing.
Yeah.
But what happened like once your college career was done, the next step, would you just start training people in the gym, or did you just go into work in the soccer academy?
So the entire time I was playing in college, I was working for the Pittsburgh Riverhounds as
Okay.
an academy coach. So our academy system is Um, That's what the equivalent would be. I mean, it's like I know very little about like the hockey system in
That's fair.
Canada,
Yeah, you can
but I know a
explain the
little bit
soccer
because
system.
of
Yeah.
Letterkenny. I mean, it's basically like, you know, your travel, but
Yeah.
it's meant to be, because like MLS systems in the United States have like academies, and with ours being USL, which is the division below, like I said, it's a little bit different. I mean, but the goal is to be like the MLS teams eventually, and so um, basically it's like a pool of players from ages like 8 to 18, boys and girls, and with the goal of getting them to college, like it's college placement, developing them, you know, to
Okay.
get to college. And so I was an academy coach from 19 to 23 or so. And so, but I was living in Westchester, so I wasn't really here to do that. And so the second I left Westchester, I came back and started coaching again. And it wasn't really like a full-time job. Like it was like it was an hourly job, and I probably worked like 10 hours or so, but then I did other stuff on the side, like my own kind of training. And I was doing that while I was trying to kind of figure out like what was next. And so that was when like I was lifting in my garage every day, listening to podcasts and just like kind of seeing what was what. I did start working at a gym. I worked at a gym, which is actually across the street from where I live now. It's called 3 Minute Fitness, and it's a smaller like boutique style gym that does just classes. And there's like 10 stations, and you spend 3 minutes at each one. And then you just kind of like, my job was just to kind of explain the workout, kind of start the clock, you know, tell people when to switch, and then cool them down at the end. And I did that for a few months, and that was my first like real like kind of introduction to being a fitness coach and like being in front of people. And honestly, I loved it. I really enjoyed it. It was fun because I liked being the guy at the front of the room, and like the demographic was all like younger people, a lot of young girls that went there, which was a great time. And it was just like, you know, it was cool. And so then, but when the Virginia Tech thing happened, like I left all of that and I went, you know, down to Virginia. And I don't know what would have happened, you know, down there, because I was really only there for 6 weeks. Like I started coaching, I coached a youth team down there. My plan was to start working at a gym down there, and then it just never happened because I came back home, you know. Yep. And so I was back here in March with just like ideas. And then I coached 2 people in person that summer of 2020 in my parents' garage. They were my first 2 clients ever, Jake and Fran. I still see them. Jake is actually still a client of mine. He's been online with me now for almost 2 years. So, I mean, he's trained with Marshall Fitness for about 3 years now, nice. Which is, he's my longest running client. And so that was, I mean, I had a sick home gym. It's still there. It's still my parents' house, but they used to come like 3 times a week. And then that was the beginning of it. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, it was in the fall where I took everything online, and I was like, this makes so much sense. Like, I mean, there's just such room for growth, and not feeling like my time is being taken away. And I mean, I never wanted to train in person like 8 hours a day. I mean, I think it'd be exhausting. I mean, even 3 sessions a day is pretty exhausting. And so, yeah, that was kind of the next step into that like phase of everything.
Yeah, no, that sounds about right. It sounds like from what you're telling me, you like the flexibility of movement or travel and freedom too, which is understandable. I've never worked. I never worked a desk job, but I guess what I do now, I'm at a desk all day long now anyway. It's my own desk. So when it comes to like who you're helping now, you're helping these former athletes get back to peak fitness. You're helping all kinds of athletes, or are you specializing in soccer players?
It's pretty much open to anybody. I mean, you know, of course, like that's an area that I feel that I'm connected to. You know, I've got some clients that don't, you know, fit that mold exactly, but the one story that kept popping up was I would talk to people on the phone, and they would always say something along the lines of, I haven't felt fit since I played this sport at this time. And I was always like, and after a few, you know, kind of times hearing that, and after, you know, maybe going through OTA 2 as well, I started thinking like, you know, there's something there. And I think what happens with people is like one of 2 things. They either end up like me, where I was able to kind of continue that structure and discipline of the sport that I played, and kind of put it into something else, which for me is, you know, my own routine of working out and stuff like that and lifting and running and whatever else I do. Or they completely don't know how to do that. And so those are the people that I look for, in a sense. And so, and I've heard that story several times. Like I just had a new client, who was a cheerleader. He was a cheerleader at Penn State. And, he came to me and, he's not in college anymore. And he said, I had this routine and I had this discipline and I didn't have to worry about working out because I was always, we had practice every day, whatever. And I was like, dude, you just summarize everything to a T. And, that's exactly the story that I kind of tell people that, that's kind of what I want to attract, is like that type of person. And, so, I think and it doesn't really matter sport or even level. Like, I mean, I've had people tell me like middle school soccer, like they felt so fit then. And then after that, it was like, oh, I don't have it anymore. And I'm like, because it doesn't really matter what level you played at, because there's still that the structure is the most important thing. And the idea of being a part of a team. And that's something that I really like to focus on is, my client group is called Team Martial Fitness, because I want it to feel like a team-based environment where everybody's helping each other, because it's, everyone's there for the same reason. And I'm used to being on teams. I've been a part of teams my whole life. I'm still part of a team now. And I think, you've got your veteran people that have been through it that can help the rookies. And it's kind of the setup that it's gotten so much better. Initially it was tough, when I had like 10 people and you get like 2 people to really buy into it. But now I'm up at like 22. And so now it's a lot more engaging and stuff like that. And so
nice.
That's been enjoyable to see for sure.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, as someone who, like I said in the beginning, like I guess I'm considered an athlete. I played pretty competitive hockey up until 20. And then it's at 20 in Canada, it's like you have to decide, are you going to try to play pro somewhere, either here or abroad, or it's like you just play men's league. So like for the past I'm aging myself. For the past 13 years, it's been men's league, which is good. Like I love being a part of a team too. COVID really shut that down for us here. I haven't played before this summer. I hadn't played since January 2020, which is like the first time I got back on the ice. I was like, it was like riding a bike, but at the same time it wasn't. I was like, what am I doing? Like finding the feet and the hands, but it's been fun. Yeah. I think, for anyone who's played sports before, I can think back, like I wasn't in the best shape when I was playing, but I know, especially endurance wise, stamina, cardiovascular, I definitely had more in the tank than I do now. Cause weightlifting is a little bit different, where it's maybe 30 seconds output. Whereas for hockey shifts, it's 45, 60 seconds. But I found, and you can probably speak to this better than me, but when people go from like, they were an athlete or they're attached to that, they're not playing anymore. They're playing maybe once a week, maybe they eat the same or more because that's what they were able to eat when they were playing. And they find there's a huge disconnect there. And that's why they tend to either, gain unwanted weight, or they feel like they're not as comfortable. Do you find that happens with your clientele as well?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, usually in the first week, what I hear every time, it's like, it's a guarantee. Someone will say, I had no idea I was supposed to be eating this much or eating this little, or I was eating this much of protein or whatever. Like it always happens. Like there's always something. And it's crazy how it can be so subconscious for so long, like what your intake is. Like people just don't think about it. And maybe it's because they don't know, so they don't even know what they don't know, but it's not, it's just not a concern. And then that's when you kind of end up, maybe 5 years out and 20 pounds heavier. And then you realize, like this, I shouldn't have been doing this for this long. And I mean, I think back to before I knew anything about nutrition or even working out, like being a soccer player, like, I mean, I thought I was in great shape. Like when I was telling you about how when I really changed my body type, like I thought as a goalkeeper, like maybe I should be a little bigger, not maybe in the sense of like have more body fat, but just have more muscle, because again, I'm small. Like, I don't know, I got to fight people off in the air, whatever. And then it was the difference between me at 14% body fat and me at 8% body fat was insane. I mean, it was just like you just like such a well-oiled machine at that point. And I mean, there were days that summer where we would play every single day. On 4 of those days, we would lift. On 3 of those days, we would run. And then sometimes you're doing all 3 in one day. And I was able to manage it, no problem. Like I felt awesome. And I mean, injury wise, like I didn't have a lot of nagging soft tissue injuries. Like I got those later. But I mean, it was just like, it's crazy how if you can figure out how to be efficient, like what a difference it can make on just performance and stuff like that. And
Mhm.
like I'm still pretty close with the pit program and stuff. Like, I mean, being a pro coach here, like we go over to pit games and we'll just watch because those are next year or 2 years pros or whatever. And it's crazy the way the program has kind of developed. And I'm kind of on the outside looking in and seeing what they're doing, and just like all the resources that they have, being a top tier program. It's like I just feel so lucky that I was able to take all of that stuff that I learned there and kind of like, pass it along to my people as well, and try to use that in a sense to get people to, I don't know, kind of change their lives or make their lives better.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know what it's like for soccer and from what you experienced, but I know for me and growing up playing hockey, there was no nutrition education whatsoever. It was kind of like you just followed whatever your parents did or what you heard other people do. And it usually involved just heaping amounts of carbs all the time. And then you stop playing. Like I was on the ice 4 or 5, sometimes 6 days a week, down to 1. Can't be eating the same kind of stuff, right? So it's like until you have that education, it's tough to really change, because if you live a certain way for a long time, you just live, right? You're not really thinking about it. As you said, it's subconscious. And then you stop playing, like, okay, well, I stopped playing, and then the eating just stays the same. And it's like, well, there's a huge disconnect there. Did you have more nutrition education? You kind of had to sort that out yourself too.
I got a lot of it from playing at Pitt, because we had a nutritionist with our team.
Nice.
And she kind of did all the Olympic sports. So there was one for football, because I mean, football and basketball are the big programs, at Pitt. And but then with all the other sports like men's and women's soccer and baseball, and now we have women's lacrosse, like it was one for them, and it became a lot more involved. Like my first 2 years, we kind of saw her like once a year. Like she was there if we like wanted to see her, but then by the time I was a junior and senior, it was like she was there all the time. Like we had a lot of stuff like designed by her, and there was a lot of just different information being given all the time. And so that was a big help. I mean, it's funny the way things develop though, and the way things change. Like when I did the paleo diet, like I was kind of under the impression that, this is about the quality of food that I'm eating. That's what's going to cause me to lose this fat or whatever. And then you kind of realize later, it's like, oh, well, I was just eating a lot less. Like I was eating a high amount of protein, but I was eating less. And so that probably played a factor as well. And, it's just interesting, like the way that, I mean, even hearing like my clients now, like what they say about nutrition, like they're maybe the things that they've believed for a while, or, the myths that you hear that, people assume are true, like don't eat after 8 p.m., like, whatever, there's so much stuff out there. And I say this to people all the time. It's like, there's so much misinformation, or there's people saying different things. And, but then it really comes down to like, a lot of the stuff is the same, it's like, I mean, everybody's different, but like, there's a lot of these core principles that if you can follow them, you'll see what you want to see, you'll get the results. And, I mean, that's just something that like you were saying, like people have their parents, or they have like the way they were raised. I mean, I've got a friend of mine, it was actually my old roommate, looking at we had like separate cabinets, like in the kitchen, and like looking at mine versus looking at his, and like, it's all like goldfish and like Hot Pockets and Pop-Tarts and like all that kind of stuff. And it's just like, and then mine is none of that. Like, I mean, nothing that could sit on a shelf for 7 months, but that's just like, it's what he's done his whole life, and it's never become a problem. And so it's like, this is fine. And it's just interesting breaking down those beliefs and like seeing what people really think.
What do you find your clients struggle with most, like throughout working in the program with you, or what do you have to reprogram for them?
I think one of the biggest things that I have to, and not everybody does this, but I've noticed it recently, is like the notion that, eating in a deficit means the weekends too, because what will happen is, you eat at a deficit Monday through Friday, and then, or Sunday through Thursday or whatever, and then Friday, Saturday, you have a surplus of 2,000, and then you completely eliminate your deficit. And that, I feel, is such a, don't want to say a problem, but it's such like a sneaky thing because, you know, people can be doing all the work and it's tough because I get it. Like I'm 26, man. I go out every weekend, but I am very aware of what my intake is. And I mean, I'm not like, I enjoy myself, but I don't go crazy to the point where I think I'm really setting myself back or like putting myself in a position to where I'm moving in the wrong direction. But those habits are tough because people also don't like being completely honest about that stuff either, you know? And so then you have to really kind of, you know, almost say like, hey, like, just so you know, if you, you know, if you go off the rails every Saturday or Friday, Saturday, like that can really stall all the work that you're putting in throughout the rest of the week.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you know, it's a lifestyle thing and, you know, people get used to what they're doing. And I mean, my big thing is, and for me personally is like, I work really, really hard throughout the week and even, you know, during the day on Saturday and Sunday. And I make sure I'm in the gym as much as I can be, and I'm eating correctly so that I can enjoy those times on the weekend. But it still doesn't mean that you can completely take 36 hours off and just do whatever, you know, like there's such a fine line. And it's just, I think getting people to understand that has been like, it's a challenge. I don't think it's been a major problem, but it is something that I think it can be, like I said, sneaky in the sense that it happens and they maybe don't realize it until 4 weeks down the road. And they're like, oh, I'm not seeing results. And I'm like, well, what's going on? And then you kind of look at it. Oh, well, that's something that, you know, we got to talk about.
Yeah. I find the biggest difference, and I'm glad you brought up a fine line, because the biggest difference could literally just be the intent. Like if someone has the intent of wanting some extra freedom for the weekend, they have to have the intent of like, okay, I'm going to be diligent throughout the week. It's not like, well, they're 1 foot in, 1 foot out from Sunday to Thursday. And they're like, well, it's Friday now, so let's just kind of whatever happens. That's, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Like, it's almost like you're right. I want to say you're wasting your time, but it's you're really stalling yourself or potentially putting yourself behind. Whereas if you're like Will's saying, like, you know, being very diligent, getting your exercise in, you know, non-negotiable type of stuff, so you then can have a bit of freedom on the weekend. That's kind of my approach too. As a father of two, the summers, every weekend we're doing something, and I'm not bringing chicken breast and broccoli on with me on the go. Like that's not it. So it's like, yeah, I need to make sure from, you know, Sundays to Thursdays and pretty much Fridays, like things are pretty diligent. It's not too much straying away from the high protein balanced diet that I eat. And then Saturdays I can have that flexibility. I also do have a coach who kind of keeps me in line with that stuff too, which I think everyone could use a coach at some point or another. Sure. You know, you and I both know that. But yeah, I think it starts with the intent and the mindset behind it.
Yeah, you had a really good post about that recently. I think maybe that's why I brought it up. Maybe I didn't even think about it, but it was, I think it was on Instagram. It was something about like what we were just talking about, like something about maybe it was the weekends of the week and then like what happens on the weekends. I can't remember what it was. I think it was on your Instagram. It's
if you tell yourself the weekend's going to be a problem, it's going to be a problem.
Yes. Yeah. It's exactly what it was. Yeah. Cause I mean, I'm a big believer in that too, in terms of just like the way, like self-talk and the way that you frame things out loud. I mean, like I've never referred to coaching as a job, never, because I don't see it that way. And if I feel like if I keep referring it to my job, or I'm like, hey, I'm going to work, like I don't even say that. I don't like the phrase going to work because I'm not going to work. I'm going to coach.
Nice.
And so, you know, even tonight, like, I mean, so in Pittsburgh, we've got a lot of bike trails and I live down the river from the stadium. So I'll ride my bike to the trail and then to the stadium. And, you know, my dad calls me all the time and he's, hey, you working tonight? And I'm like, no, I'm going to coach tonight. It's a completely different thing. And that it's very, very simple, or like, it's a little thing. It's a minimal detail, but I think it matters a lot. All of that stuff, like what you're telling yourself it matters so much. And it's hard to talk about. Like, I mean, talking to you about it, like, I know you understand where I'm coming from, but you talk to people that don't think that way. And it's like hard to get them to understand what you're saying because, like, you know, it's just something that maybe they never thought about or never had an issue with. And they just kind of give you that smile, like, oh, really? Like, and, you know, I think all that, like, that little, like, nitty gritty stuff that goes on in your head, like, that stuff matters. And it can really make the difference between, you know, everything from your perception to motivation to discipline and all that stuff. It all matters so much.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, as a goalie, you had to live that. Like I'm sure your self-talk game
Yeah,
had to be on point, right? Because if you start getting
that
down on
probably
yourself,
played a role. Yeah.
yeah. But athletes
Yeah,
in
no,
general,
no, that actually, I didn't even think about that, but that's probably a reason why it came up so much because, I mean, yeah, they say goalkeepers they're supposed to have the shortest memories in the world because, you know, if you do make a mistake, you're probably not going to get subbed out. Especially in the pros, because in the pros, you only got 5 subs. And that's in our division. In the MLS, I believe you only have 3.
wow.
And so like, you're not going to sub the keeper for 1 bad goal. I mean, if he gives up 4 bad goals, then you'll probably sub him out. But if you know, make a mistake and then you decide that you're going to throw it in the tank and have a bad game, then you just can't do that. You don't have the
No,
time to do that. And so you have to find a way to bring yourself back. And, you know, that just goes along with all of the, you know, the mental part of that position, you know,
absolutely.
and like I said, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody.
Yeah, it's not for me.
Do something else that's more fun. Go score some goals. You know?
Yeah, 100%. Which is funny you bring that up because my son started playing soccer this summer and he loves scoring goals. Like he was like
Yeah.
upset one game he didn't, and they don't keep score. He's 5 years old.
Right.
But in the last 2 weeks, he volunteered to play goalie. And
Oh, no.
I was like, what is going on here? I'm like, support him, whatever, do your thing.
Yeah.
But it's just funny because then he was like, yeah, like I want to stop the ball. I'm like, okay, good for you, man. But then they'd sub out and then he'd go run and try to score. And then he wasn't goalie forever, which like my brother played goalie in hockey for a year. And I think the pressure it was too much. Like we've talked about it. Like you're all alone. And if something happens, it's your fault. Like even if people don't say it, it's like, I wish you would have made that save. Like things like that, which is, yeah. So the mental game, like, and I think everyone faces it where if you catch yourself saying something negative about what you did, or I'm such an idiot, or just things like that, it's like you keep telling yourself that it's not going to help you improve at all in any aspect. Like I've caught myself doing it. I've heard clients say like I just can't control myself around and just insert any snack food here, and it's like, well, you keep telling yourself you can't control yourself around it, you're never gonna control yourself around it. It's a truth that you just created for yourself, and I think that's huge for athletes, non-athletes, dieting, non-dieting. It's like self-talk is not talked about a lot, but I'm glad we brought that up because it's helpful.
Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely isn't talked about a lot. And it's, have you ever, I always think of, and I don't know, have you ever seen, it's like it was like this, maybe it was a study or it was something like with water. And I don't even know if this is real or not. I don't know how valid this is in terms of science, but it was like the idea of negativity. And I don't know if it was like spoken or if it was thoughts, but it was like the water, like it was like a water droplet or something like that. And when you spoke negative things, like the patterns in like the molecules got all messed up. But then
I think
like,
yeah, this sounds familiar.
do you know what I'm
I
talking about?
forget specifically from what.
Yeah, like it's something, I don't even know if it was water, but it's something like that. And I mean, again, like I think that might have been on the, I don't want to call it woo woo, but it sounds a little like that. I mean, I think there's a lot more truth to that kind of stuff in a sense than, you know, maybe there is outright. I mean, just in terms of how it was discovered. I mean, I think there's plenty of things that are real that, you know, we just can't explain yet because, you know, we don't know how to. But I always think about that kind of stuff. It's like when you've got that negativity and like, you know, who knows what that's doing to the rest of your body. You know, there's like the talk about how like your fascia, you know, holds onto emotion and all kinds of stuff. Like there's, everything's connected in a sense. And I just feel like, you know, when you're putting things out into the universe, you know, kind of like you were saying with like, I don't have control over this. It's going to find a way to manifest itself. And I've seen the positive of that 100%. And I've said that with my business alone this year. It's like the way things have gone has almost completely fallen into place the way that I said that they would. And I'm a doer. I've always been a doer. Like I don't like saying that I'm going to do anything because, well, no, I should say, I don't say I'm going to do something unless I know for a fact I'm going to make it happen. Because I've always been bothered by people that are just all talk. It drives me nuts. And having the ability to be able to say, I'm going to do this and then make it happen. I think really just puts you in a good position just as a human. I mean, my roommate in college, I experimented with intermittent fasting when I was like it was my 5th year in college, and I said I was going to do it, and then the next 2 days I did it, and my roommate said, he was like, it's really admirable that you said you were going to do that and now you're doing it. And I was like, and it's just second nature to me. I'm like, well, I
Yeah.
said I was going to do it, so I'm obviously going to do it. Um, but I mean, getting back to my point, like in terms of like manifesting things, like I don't know how, but and maybe it's just as simple as possible, as it's an idea that just becomes real from action and intent and all that different stuff. But no matter what the cause is, like it's a very real thing.
Mhm.
And I just remember sitting in my room, and the whole world shut down, and I'm thinking to myself, I need to figure out something that's going to allow me to do whatever I want, and travel if I want to, and have the autonomy to kind of make my own decisions. And here it is right here. And it's just, of course, I mean, there's times when it gets nerve wracking, like I'm always afraid that I'm going to lose every single client in a matter
Yeah,
of a day.
that never goes
Um,
away.
yeah, it never goes away. And but it's always like, there's another piece of it too, is like, and I remember this from Barbell Struggle, Anders Varner was the podcast. And I remember him saying something along the lines of like, I never want a real job. And, if I do get to the point where what I've created isn't doing enough or whatever, it's like, I'm just going to go back to work. And
Hmm.
that's always the way that I've looked at things. Like, it's like, if things start going, back in January, I lost like 5 clients in a matter of a week. And I was like, it was terrifying. Like, it was
Mhm.
like, I was so nervous, and immediately I was like, all right, I gotta go back to work. And so then, start sending DMs and following up with leads and stuff like that. And then I
Yeah.
ended up bringing it back. I added 3 people in that week where I lost 5, and I kind of like, just did some damage control. And so like,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I really think it's like what everyone's always said our entire lives: you put your mind to things, that you can make it happen. And it just sounds like it is a cliche. It literally is, but it's real. It's so real. And I wish more people knew that.
Yeah. I saw a conversation on Facebook. Remember Patrick from the OT2 group? Yeah. He talked about like manifesting and things like that. And I was just scrolling through the comments because I'm a bit of a lurker on Facebook sometimes. And someone was like arguing with him about like, yeah, you can't just say things and have them happen. But he's like, no, look, like when you have intent, or you really want something, or you're trying to manifest it, or whatever it might be, wherever your mindset is, you're going to start showing up differently. And it's 100% true. I can tell you firsthand, July was crazy busy. I started getting down on myself. It wasn't the best month I've had in a while or whatever. And then all it took was like a day of like, I just did some work, and I chatted with people, and then like someone applied for coaching. I'm like, oh, and then I had another great, and I had a client renew. And I'm like, oh, and all these wins started happening, but they didn't just happen because they happened. It's like, I believe that I set some intent. I started putting that out there and doing the things that brought me success in the past. So then I saw more success again. It's not just magic. It's like, if you go into a diet, like, this is going to suck. What the hell do you think is going to happen? It's going to feel
Yeah.
like shit from the minute you start it, right?
Yeah.
It's always going to be the intent, right? And what Will and I are talking about, it's not going to be positive or exciting all the time, whether you're in fat loss or not. You're going to have hard times. We've both experienced, owning a business and running one through a pandemic. It's definitely not easy. I think it's worth it where we're at right now. But you have to just show up. You still have to put in work, whether it feels good, whether it's exciting, whether it's not. It's like, you got to set the intent, like you have the end goal in mind, and like you just got to put in the work. That's literally it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, it's, going back to that self-talk thing, is like, if you could attach a speaker to my brain and just play it to the rest of the world, people would think I'm the cockiest person on the planet.
That's awesome.
Because, and the thing is too, and like, I became aware of this really early on with sports. It's like, the cockiest players are just the people that don't know how to keep it in their head, and like, that works. It works for people, because
Yep.
there's some times when, certain players, they're so good, but they're so arrogant, and that's just how they have to, it's how they have to talk to themselves in
Mhm.
order to get themselves to do what they know how to do. And I kind of like I brought that with me, and I wasn't one of those players. I absolutely wasn't. Like I was crazy. Getting back to your point about goalkeepers, like I used to freak out when I got scored on, like up high school through college, and I realized later on like that I couldn't do that anymore because I would get so tense that I couldn't move. But um, I really think, like I was saying, like it's just I'm always telling myself that like it's me. This is mine. Like I'm in charge. Like
Mhm.
and I mean that's a very very lessened version of it, but um that stuff, it matters, and it matters that you think that you're the person that can make it happen, and if you're not, and if you don't think that, and it's just it's hard to even describe the way that it could be, but when you've got yourself in your corner, it's like, well, who else do you really need?
That's yeah. See, and that's I can go on a whole rant here, but I think
Mhm.
this is why, like, I don't have a problem with arrogance and cockiness if it's
Mhm.
in the right kind of context.
Sure.
But society doesn't like it because
No.
most people have a hard time having confidence in themselves. Like my wife and I've talked about it. We've known each other since high school. We were good friends. My image in high school was the cocky jock, which is hilarious to me because I was overweight and self-conscious, and I guess I just had a good mask on. But I carried that with me because I wanted to create, the person I wanted to be. But this is why I love, and this is a complete side tangent, but this is why I love Kanye West. Obviously
Yeah.
politics aside, but he is
Sure.
the most arrogant person I've ever heard
He is.
speak.
Yeah.
But he is his biggest fan,
Hmm.
and he should be because he makes good shit. Like that's how
Yeah.
I look at it. Like, yes, he talks crazy. Well, I guess it's not even crazy, but he speaks out of line a lot. But
Right.
this is just his brain on speaker. That's how I kind of. Then once you said that, I'm like, that makes absolute sense. But I think everyone should be your own biggest fan, and it's not an easy place to be. Definitely
No,
not.
I mean, yeah, no way.
No.
It took me a long time to get to that point. I wasn't the same. But when I was in college, I was like the least confident person I've ever been. And I think part of that was the fact that I was playing. Part of it was soccer because I almost felt at times that I didn't deserve to be there. Because I mean, just the guys that I played with, like we had just guys that soccer in Pittsburgh was a tough thing because it's not a hotbed for development.
Hmm.
You're not sending the best players to the best schools from Pittsburgh. They're coming from Eastern Pennsylvania and Central Pennsylvania, California, Florida, wherever. And so I'm playing with these guys that have, done so much more than me and have such a higher soccer IQ than me. And so I was at times I was like, maybe I'm the number three, um, whatever. And I never really showed that. I think a lot of the guys that I played with would be surprised to think that or to know that I thought that.
Hmm.
But then, and maybe my time at Westchester kind of turned that around because I was the guy. I knew a lot more, and I felt better about my place like in the soccer world and stuff. But I mean, I think it all comes down to like imposter syndrome,
Yep.
And it probably wasn't true. I mean, I even had my head coach tell me like, we want you here. And he knew me for 3 weeks, and I was just like, no, you don't. and,
Yeah.
but I mean, it just kind of bled into everything. You could say like, socially, like talking to girls, like I didn't really like kind of feel like good about that kind of stuff
Hmm.
until, a couple years later, after college. And I get it it's a bummer to think about that kind of stuff because college is such a fun opportunity to do so much stuff. And like, but that being said, is like, I don't think if I would have not gone through college the way that I did, that I would end up where I am right now. And so
That's
I don't really worry about it all that much, but it's interesting, man. It's interesting how like just like you said, like what you think about yourself can really change the outside world as well, all the external stuff.
absolutely 100% agree, man. Love to wrap this up with a golden nugget from you, my man. Whatever topic that you wanted to be on, however long you
Oh,
want to go off on. Yeah.
oh,
Put you on the
I was
spot.
thinking about this before. Let me think. I was thinking about this for like 2 days, and I want to make sure I have it in a concise way. So, one thing that I hear a lot about my I guess content or the way that I kind of put my business out there is people always tell me that I sound really genuine and authentic, and that's a weird thing because I don't think about that, and I think if I was thinking about it, then I probably wouldn't sound genuine or authentic. You know what I'm saying? And so
Mm,
it's cool to hear that, and I appreciate that. And I mean, like I said, I don't even think about it, and I don't want to sit here and tell my and like say like, oh, I'm so genuine or whatever. But um, I think just wanting the best for everybody in a sense of whatever it is they're doing, whether it's related to me and Marshall Fitness or whatever they're doing. I think it's been just like I think that's just the best way to approach all things. And again, it's a weird thing to talk about because I'm in a sense just telling like saying that I'm such a nice guy. But in reality, like that is what I want. Like I want everyone to get what they want because I want to get what I want. And if I can help them, great. But I just think that has been such a help because and it comes down to like, we talk about this, I think it was OTA 2 or OTA 1, even like the reciprocity principle of,
yeah.
asking people about them and they're going to ask about you.
Yep.
And, just kind of like, just, wanting the best for everybody is such a good way to, it sounds selfish. Like it's so hard to talk about and not make it sound the way you want it. But,
Yeah.
I like helping people. I want the best for everybody. And it's just been, I just find it really helpful in a sense. From like I don't know, I don't want to say from a business standpoint, but from a personal standpoint as well.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I'm getting at?
Yeah, just building
like,
you just show up as you. This is who you are.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that people call you genuine and authentic. Does that mean that most people they see aren't on social media? You know what I mean? Or is just your message just hits them a little harder because it's real?
I don't know. I didn't think about that. I mean, I remember when it like the first time it came up and then it happened again. And it was just interesting. Cause like, I mean, like it's weird because like I said, I never think about doing that.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing too, for me that helped me a lot is that from 18 on, like anytime I posted anything on Instagram or Facebook, I would hashtag it Marshall Fitness. And that was like 6 years before Marshall Fitness was a business.
Nice.
And so I had like name recognition before I even decided to try and do anything with it. And I think that also is just consistency. People know that I live the life, and I have another, I call him like a trainer acquaintance, and he trains like college and high school level athletes, and he has his own gym. And I kind of knew him through another friend, and this friend was telling me about what this guy was saying, and he was saying how he loves that I actually work out because there's too many trainers that don't,
nice.
that don't live the life that they want other people to live. And I think that's important. I mean, I know like, obviously business is going to come first in a sense at times, but you have to know, you have to be a part of it. You got to live it. And that's another thing that I think has been so helpful. And I don't know. I mean, it's interesting seeing like, everyone has different backgrounds. Like you were saying, like, I mean, you talk to, people like me all the time, and, being in the OTA groups and stuff and seeing where everyone's coming from. And, everyone has, the different issues that they deal with and stuff. And, I've got issues that I deal with and everything. And I don't know, I think there's just like, there's certain things that, like I was saying, like the core principles of everything that, and I mean, that's not even business related, but personal, like just in life and the way that the world works, there's just certain things that should be constants. And if you can figure those out, everything else just kind of gets elevated a little bit.
I love it. Yeah, man. Well, hell of a golden nugget, if I could say so myself.
Thank you. I appreciate it because I felt like I rambled the entire time.
That's okay. I'm a rambler too, so I can follow along when someone goes off on tangents. I'm like, We'll map them together. That's fine.
That works out so well.
Yeah. This is shameless plug time of the podcast. So where can everyone find you online?
All right. So Instagram is my main social media. It's at Will Marshall _1. That's WILLMARSHALL_1. I'm on Facebook. I believe that link is the same at Will Marshall _1. And then my website is marshallfitness.online.
marshallfitness.online. All right. I'll put all those in the chat so you don't have to remember if you're driving right now. You don't have to remember them all off the top of your head. Put them all in the links in the bio. Will, my man, great chat with you, man. Thanks again.
John, yeah, man. That was great. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast, everyone. We'll catch you on the next one.